Hello, my name is Ralph Rodriguez, and I am the Fire Chief for Bexar County 2 Fire Department. What you're about to see is a full-length documentary titled Conquer the Challenge. It portrays an array of events that occurred during the year of 2020. The stories and footage are from real-life incidents and may be graphic in nature. Parental guidance is recommended for anyone under the age of 18. Our department faced many challenges, and I am proud of all our members who are continuing to serve the public during the COVID-19 pandemic. I want to thank all the citizens of Bexar County and their continued support as we work together to get through the COVID-19 pandemic. I also want to thank the men and women of Bexar County 2 Fire Department for rising and conquering the challenge each and every day to strive for a better tomorrow.
In 2019, we followed Bexar County 2 Fire Department, previously known as Drownmo Village, to see how much we had grown. We started our own EMS division. We hired and trained many new members, and we even took a look inside one of our specialized divisions in hazmat. 2020 has been quite a year for our department as well. Our members have had to endure and overcome plenty of obstacles. There were many unforeseen challenges that forced our department to make some very tough decisions. The safety of our firefighters and the citizens of Bexar County were our main priorities. The physical and mental health of our firefighters were at a greater risk, and Bexar County 2 Fire Department answered the call. The year started out just like any other, protecting lives and property. The EMS division has taken long strides in growing and has now implemented the administration of whole blood. The first year of EMS was not an easy task to take on, but we were ready. Responding to fires and medical emergencies hasn't changed. Our members have come across these types of incidents before. But this year, all that was about to change.
My position with Bexar County 2 Fire Department is I'm the captain of EMS education and training. I oversee all the EMS training and education to include continuing education, credentialing of new EMS providers, and assisting with protocol and clinical operating guidelines development.
Okay, make sure you're getting good recoil. There you go. Alright guys, let's hold for a full
So the
check
first
on
year of
the
EMS here at our department, if I had to describe it, it's exciting. It really is. I get a chance to see our department provide services to the community, providing EMS specifically. It's really exciting. We're getting the opportunity to grow and grow clinicians, not just serve the public, but grow clinicians to do fantastic patient care. The EMS education and training has just exploded as well with that. Now built a dedicated sim center. We have a simulation mannequin. We're doing high fidelity training, practicing with, quote unquote fake blood products where we're able to administer and train on administering blood in the field and pioneering some new procedures for some of our medics just to really do great patient care. So it's really exciting.
My name is Walter Ball. I'm the Division Chief of EMS for Bexar County 2 Fire. I've been with this department for 15 years and in the fire service for 19 years. It's been very impactful as a program. Since its inception, we've been able to take the 30-minute response times that we used to have as a first response agency waiting for an EMS unit and put those EMS units right in the back doors of people here. So we've reduced that time greatly. We have currently 5 ambulances sitting right in this 60 square mile area, so that's been greatly influential.
At the train go at Redbird Street, map of the street, 20-year-old car, 5th Street.
Hey, whoever's rolling this dash, get the You got it. You good? Alright. There's a uniform this way, Chase. It's gonna hurt, bud.
No, we don't have it going yet. I need to get this established.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's not too bad. My spine's okay. Well,
Alright, friends, give me the book. What's that? Don't leave your arm, okay? Takes a turn to get off. I need a sailing lock. It's in my pocket right now. If you don't mind getting this open.
We've really done a lot of big things. We've been busier. This is our busiest year we've ever had. So not only are we pushing out a whole new thing, but we're doing it at a very busy pace. And being able to offer that to our citizens has been a huge deal. Now we have control over what we're doing with the citizens.
Is this flushed?
oh my god. Can someone get my bottom left one?
We have 2 heavy started. Is that 16? Yeah, 16 bilaterally.
Yeah, whole blood is I think one of the biggest deals to come to EMS in years. I would say, to not try to make it sound something absolutely crazy, but I think probably one of the biggest things since CPR. I mean, truthfully, it's one of those things that is life-changing in a very short amount of time, where we can really make a difference in a very short amount of time. I mean, there's only one thing that can truthfully replace somebody that's losing blood, and it's blood. So it's amazing not only to be able to have that product, but be one of the very first agencies that's really using it and putting it to use in the field and seeing those changes that it gives for our patients. I mean, it can be night and day for some people, and it really can be the difference between life and death.
You said agreeing with these. One sounds clear still? Yeah. All right, let's slide them up. 3, 4, 2, 10, 3. Yeah. Okay. All right. Now. Can you put these lips flat for us?
Outbreak of a mystery virus in China that now has the World Health Organization on edge. At least 4 people have died and hundreds more are sick, though there are concerns 5 times as many people could be infected. Tonight, Chinese health officials say the illness, which is a new strain of coronavirus, can be passed from person to person, stoking fears that it could be moving faster than it can be contained.
Volume has stayed relatively steady. We have not seen a significant increase in anything. We hope to keep it that way. The other thoughts that we've been discussing.
So we studied the previous pandemics, at some point in time in our school, through history, world history, U.S. history, we all studied that. But never once did we think, hey, we were going to be impacted to the level in which we were. So I remember very early on when COVID and you started seeing the coronavirus symbols on TV, you started seeing that and it kind of caught your attention, but this was something that was on national news. It really hadn't hit local yet.
Who were in China and potentially exposed to the coronavirus are arriving here tomorrow. They will be housed at Joint Base San Antonio-Lackland.
This noon, the CDC confirms one of the people quarantined at Joint Base San Antonio tested positive for the coronavirus.
The risk to the San Antonio public remains low, and I want to stress that the individual has been quarantined since arriving at Lackland Air Force Base from the Wuhan province in China, and the individual remains in isolation in a local hospital. Of the 91 passengers At Lackland, this is the only patient with symptoms at this time.
How are we going to staff for this? How are we going to train for it? Is this, very similar to a previous SARS, virus? Is this anything, like the avian flu, stuff that we've at least responded to before? But there was very little that we could pull from previous pandemics. EMS didn't even exist back then. So the industry wasn't even there. The fire service was, but the EMS side was not. So pre-hospital medicine, how was that going to change? How were we going to integrate, into the hospital systems? And we are in one of the, if not the strongest, healthcare regions, in the state and in the nation, where we prepare together, we work together. But how were we going to interact with something we had never seen before? And that was some of our concern very early on into it.
Is the with the children staying home, with there being less, kind of supervision, if you will, that we might see an increase in some of the 911 calls during the day. But again, we haven't been seeing that.
So you can't mention 2020 without COVID, right? And nobody ever would have thought. So in a first year of EMS, that's tough anyways. So your first year of EMS is a big deal. Your first year of EMS being in a system like we are, where we have top of the line protocols, equipment, things like that. So that's a big learning curve. And then, oh, hey, we're going to throw the worst pandemic in 100 years on top of it.
I think some of the biggest things is training. Not that it had to suffer, but it had to change. So making those decisions to not be together, to not have, group trainings was definitely a big thing for all of us in the command staff to consider. And then when people did become ill or did feel like they were having symptoms of some sort, trying to really figure out and investigate, is it COVID related, or are they just having a normal illness?
How y'all feeling? Yeah?
And that continues to today. I mean, we're in the middle of flu season now, and there's lots of things that mimic it. So coordination between the medical officers, the medical captain, myself, and Chief Montgomery have been influential in ensuring that we try to keep our personnel as safe as possible. And at the same time, not taking away from the manpower needed to protect our citizens.
But there has been some challenges associated with COVID-19 in regards to learning new ways to do patient care. As the virus really threw us for a loop, threw us a curveball at the very beginning, we had to adjust our clinical strategies to where things that we would have normally done to take care of our patients in the beginning, we learned that weren't the safest thing for us, nor was it in the best interest of the patient. So learning medications and how to give them in different ways, learning new ventilation strategies to help our patients breathe.
It was a very, very quick education in what COVID is. Before we could type out a bulletin to send, we had new information coming. So it was very fast-paced with how we were going to change things and what our operations were going to look like. After March, for a month or two there, it actually was pretty slow. Everything kind of shut down, and nobody wanted to go to the hospital and things like that. And then now we've just picked back up, and even with a couple months there of it being kind of slow, we've had our busiest year.
Multifaceted approach really worked for us because, as I've said many times, and I'll repeat it, the worst is yes ahead for us. It is how we respond to that challenge that's going to determine what the ultimate endpoint is going to be.
So it's changed how we're going to do things, I think, for a long time. But throwing that on top of just a first year of EMS was big, and it was challenging. The
other things though that we did is the decontamination response. So working with San Antonio Fire Department, of course, we worked to decon multiple units in the region. We also took on that responsibility at our own station and have maintained that since the beginning of the COVID response, and where we have personnel that are dedicated to doing nothing more than decontamination of the units after a suspected or confirmed response, or decontamination of personnel in the equipment as well as the stations. And so there's a process, everybody's been trained on it within the department. It's a 24-hour-a-day operation, and so those units are routinely being cleaned. So if there's ever a transport of a COVID or a COVID-like or suspicion of a COVID-like person, that unit is immediately taken out of service, decontaminated before it's placed back into service. As San Antonio and the region started to receive, evacuees from the cruise ships and from other areas, and they were sheltered here and taken care of here, we started planning. We were part of that operation, part of that response, kind of as the region was. But as we started to see what this was doing we were studying what it was doing to the body, what the signs and symptoms of it were, how close was it to, say, an influenza-like illness, an ILI, something we were familiar with. Once we started studying that, that's where we started planning our training. That's where we really started working with the training division, working with the EMS division directly. How can we augment our response? But our priority has always been and always will be the public. So the public comes first. Our personnel are right there with them. And so we knew we had two responsibilities as command staff: to take care of our folks, to take care of the public as well. We did daily monitoring. We took what the CDC had, what the local health authority had already put in place. We changed it a little bit. One of the vocal pieces that we had was that it did not address the healthcare provider in a pre-hospital setting. It addressed the healthcare provider in a hospital setting from the CDC, but nurses, doctors, techs, hospital staff workers are not in a 24-hour environment. To add to that, we work a 48-hour shift. So our personnel are close proximity to one another, eating, going on calls, and then of course at bedtime sleeping, very close proximity to each other. Is how do we protect them and keep them safe in those situations?
I want to send a special thank you to your teachers and principal.
We work with the prevention division to augment the fact that we were no longer doing certain activities with the public. How do we fix that? How do we still ensure that we're getting the message out during spring break? We had a huge PR campaign out for Stop the Bleed in May that we intended to roll out.
If someone is injured, do you know what to do while waiting for the ambulance? Minutes count. First, ensure your safety. Look for serious bleeding. Second, apply steady direct pressure on the wound with a clean cloth. And third, if a tourniquet is available.
We know that we had fire activities going on during the summer and in the fall. How are we going to change that? So the prevention division, of course, took that on and started doing a lot of stuff online. And then that's when we started doing the birthday drive-bys. Across the nation, the fire department and law enforcement was seen as doing these drive-bys on children's birthdays, and that was what we took on as well. And so there'd be days where we'd have 10 or more birthdays at one time, where we were going by and just letting them know that we were there, letting them know we're thinking about them, and we're closed, but we're not completely shut down. When we first started getting the calls of our armed personnel being sick, that's when we started getting concerned. This was at times almost a near 24-hour operation. Between myself, the division, the EMS division, we would be up very close to 24 hours a day, just barely taking naps, just monitoring, personnel, monitoring ourselves, making sure that everybody within the administration side was staggered even in their response coming to work, to ensure that the continuity of operations was always there and that the department always remained open no matter what, regardless of who had been exposed. But the one thing we could not change is to an actual fire response. So a working alarm, in a fire situation, we have no choice but to go in. That's not gonna matter because of COVID. And those are the times we're not wearing masks, we're not wearing certain protection. We do have, of course, respiratory protection from the fire if they're engaged, but you have individuals that are sweating, they're working very hard, and that's a breeding ground for something like that. So we took a few steps that we could, but we knew we could never completely eliminate the threat. And that was one concern. And those type responses are more than just one station responding at one time. And so we could potentially affect multiple fire personnel at any given response. And so that was always a concern, but fortunately with the mitigation things that we had put into place, as well as the cancer initiatives before that were already in place, we're cleaning, we're deconning equipment, we're deconning personnel already prior to COVID for those reasons. And so we feel like that helped out a lot. We also worked very hard with the hospitals to try to maintain the same message. If they weren't allowing visitors, that message was sent by our personnel as well at the scene of the house. And that was probably some of the toughest conversations you had to make was, you can't come with us. We can't bring your family member, and even if we do, they're not going to be allowed in the hospital. But I will say probably when it hit home the most was when I was driving by an intensive care unit. I was driving by a hospital and I saw individuals outside that were looking through the windows, and I'm like, why are they looking through the windows of the hospital? And then it dawned on me, those are family members that are looking at their family member inside. That was the last time they ever saw them. That we may be the person that says this is the last time, or giving the opportunity the last time you're ever going to see your family member. Those are not conversations our personnel like to have, and I don't think we're expecting that in the beginning.
So my name is Jessica Massey Martinez, and I've been in the fire service for 12 years, 2.5 of those being with Bexar County District 2. So I was initially the very first paramedic only that the department hired. They sent me through the SAC Fire Academy, which is a 6-month-long fire academy, and it's Monday through Friday, 7 to 4. And then while on that schedule, I would come in to do shift work.
You see how I have all that slack? Oh, I'm gonna make the bite down here. And you may have to adjust.
I can deploy right at the stairs.
My name is Brianna Bowman. I just got hired on as a paramedic firefighter. So now we're doing the fire academy. We're doing our last live burn day. It's definitely different than any training I've done before. Working with ladders and working with the hoses and learning all the tools is all new stuff to me. I've never done anything like that before. It was definitely a good experience. I feel like the instructors are really great. They know their stuff really well, and we had plenty of time with the skills, which is awesome.
And so going through our academy, I feel was a lot more difficult for her. Just trying to gain all the concepts at once, and it's a huge culture shock coming in from just EMS only to a fire-based EMS.
It's definitely been an interesting experience. There's only so much you can prepare mentally or talk to people and get the experience without actually coming here and getting the experience. It's a whole different thing. But to experience it for yourself, it's a mental game too. You know that there's going to be heat. You just have to prepare yourself for it, and your gear. Just everything you start thinking about everything you learn and everything we've gone over the academy so far.
The very first academy that we had, we were able to have them in classrooms and do a bunch of skills and everything together, and going from that to an online, distance learning, that couldn't have been easy, especially for someone that has never had hands-on any of our equipment or anything like that. And then on top of that, being just dedicated to the ambulance. Sleepless nights, and on top of that, school the next day, whether it be online or whether it be, doing skills days with masks on now, as if the rest of our stuff isn't heavy or hot enough. So I think I give her huge props on a regular basis, because she did the same thing. She had to be on shift and do fire academy stuff while being on shift. I tried to go and encourage her as much as I can whenever I can, because she did it from no experience. With my experience, I've been in this field a long time. There's tons of good.
There's a lot of good things in the fire service, a lot of camaraderie that people talk about.
which, being real honest, I didn't experience that in the fire service until I came here. You meet a lot of probably some of the best people you ever meet. And you, as far as satisfying jobs where you feel like you're actually making a difference, I think this is probably one of the top ones.
You know, you have something great happen to where you deliver a baby in the back of your ambulance and you're on this cloud 9 high for a week, and then you have those bad calls that stay with you for your entire career.
Some of the stuff you have to experience, you know, you're always seeing people on their worst day. You know, and it's a lot of pressure. You know, people expecting you to fix their worst day. You know, and it can turn bad real quick. Everybody always, I think, has that first initial bad call, and of course, all the worst calls are always having to do with children. And then the call that we had, Jessica and I had here with the little girl that got hit by the vehicle in front of the school.
What we think may have happened is that her backpack was a little too heavy, and where she was riding it, she ended up toppling over and accidentally falling into the street, where there was a car just happened to be at that same spot, and she got hit. Right around 7:20 comes, and we get a call for an MV-Ped, and the pedestrian was on a bike. So call notes sounded really bad. It was a young female, and CPR was already started, and that was in the call notes.
That was actually one of my engine days. I wasn't even on the medic that day. And you know, we pulled up on the scene. Jess was already there.
And the image in front of me was just horrific. And then there was a lot of background stuff. You know, there's kids going to school, there's adults that happen to see, there's a nurse from the school, you know, trying her best for this little girl that she knows. Mom was already on scene, and, you know, she was reacting how any mother would to something like that.
And I just remember running to them. A lot of it's real hazy. The main thing I remember from the actual scene itself is her mother just screaming. Sorry.
I was loading and I was leaving right now.
So we did our thing. We got her loaded up. We worked her. You know, and it was. I've had traumatic calls before, and most of the time the injuries are fairly obvious.
Firefighter Kersey drove firefighter Conrad and I to the hospital. We went all the way to university. The entire way to the hospital, we worked her. She had just massive trauma everywhere.
All the injuries that she had, you know, and she, as far as visual stuff, you couldn't see all of the, I guess, how broken she was.
I was gonna do anything and everything that I could. Because at that moment in time, she was mine. She was my responsibility, and I was going to try my absolute best in all of the years that I've been in this field. Everything came down to her. Right at that moment, she was the most important thing in the world to me. And unfortunately, we weren't able to get her back.
It's not something that a whole lot of people should ever have to live through.
The scene in general, Those scenes are always chaotic because there's a lot of people on scene. The mom screams. If anybody's ever heard one, they know exactly what I'm talking about. And the mom screams are what get me every time. Unfortunately, I've had a lot of experience with pediatric patients, and the mom screams always stay in the back of your head. Those don't ever leave you.
But we chose this job. We know there's a possibility that we get to carry this around with us. We just got to do our job.
You know, you push the emotions away, you know, especially during the calls. You push emotions away, you don't feel it, not at that moment. And the entire way to the hospital, I was able to hold it together. And I knew there wasn't a lot that I could do, but I was gonna try anyway. And I held it together up until they pronounced her in the trauma room at university. And then I had to excuse myself because I couldn't stay. I couldn't stay for that. So I went into the stairwell and I just cried.
We did, I 100% believe that we did everything we possibly could to try to help that little girl. As far as immediately after the call, I feel like I kind of bottled it up quite a bit, and just extremely short term.
We have a lot of bad habits in the fire service. A lot of us turn to alcohol. We don't sleep at night. We end up trying to just bottle everything up.
That was just, as soon as we got back, I headed straight to the parking lot and I called my wife. I didn't even get any words out. As soon as I heard her voice, I just broke down.
We did a debriefing with the CISM team after the call. And right after the call, I don't think it had fully sunk in.
We all got together and kind of talked, you know, and you really start to figure out, I guess, what it's like to have a family at work as well as a family at home.
Bottling everything up just eats away at you, and I'd been doing it for years. Recognizing the signs of going through a mental health episode is everything. Recognizing the signs in yourself as well as your crewmates.
And, you know, my officer that day was very, very understanding. You know, he did everything he could to, you know, we talked about it, and it's a lot of people, and I'm guilty of it as much as anybody. I don't talk about stuff a whole lot. That's just how I process.
You have to recognize when it's too much for just you. Depression, anxiety, PTSD, as much as we make those runs on other people, we don't fully want to believe that it's a real thing for ourselves.
I think emotions from situations like that it's kind of like an infection. I mean, it'll sit there and just build and build and build.
So I think it's very important that we open up to somebody. It doesn't matter your husband, your wife, your brother on shift, your pastor, your whoever you trust the most. Just start a conversation.
It may just be how I cope with things. Not necessarily I'm trying to forget it, just I'm trying to move past it, you know, because we still have a job to do. And it's not going to be the last bad situation that we're going to be in.
That weekend, the elementary school was having a walk in her honor. We walked from the elementary to the place where she was hit by a car. It's memorialized with a white bike. And we made it all the way around the school, and they ended up planting a tree in the playground area, and that's her tree. So it has a little memorial plaque next to it, and it was one of the sunshine moments in that hurricane of an experience. It's definitely gotten easier to talk about her, because in my head, I want to share this experience with people. It's okay to allow yourself to be vulnerable and talk about these things, because if you say it, you're probably more than likely going to help somebody else say what's on their mind. And if I can help just one person, if just one person can hear what I'm going through and know that it's normal to feel that way, then I've done my part. I've done my part. I can open up to people that will open up back and hopefully help someone in sharing.
Now to that explosive new wildfire in Southern California. It's being fueled by ferocious winds, including a gust of 95 miles an hour. Tonight, it is raging out of control, threatening homes, and at least 2 firefighters are injured.
Overnight, Hurricane Laura slamming ashore as a monster Category 4, punishing the Louisiana and Texas coast with winds up to 150 miles an hour. But even more dangerous, especially in low-lying areas, a massive storm surge that officials are warning could be unsurvivable.
That storm surge could continue inland for about 30 miles.
With much of the nation reeling, this is what it's come to in El Paso amid a relentless COVID surge.
So our department's part of multiple deployment teams, both on the fire, medical, and incident management side. At one point during the COVID response, of course, we had personnel that were located in San Antonio. There were personnel that were located in hot spots around the state. At one given time, though, during wildfire season, not only did we have that, but we also had a hurricane response going on. So we were able to deploy personnel to the coastline. We had individuals deployed all the way out to California. We had vehicles that deployed out to California. We also had equipment and staff that were deployed along the borders in Texas, borders of Texas and Mexico, all at the same time.
In a normal year, our department wants to be involved with those kind of large statewide operations. When we talk about a normal year, normally it's a hurricane here and there.
Our department's really done a fantastic job of stepping up and answering the call around the state, supporting our region with STRAC and the Emergency Medical Task Force under the state of Texas.
This year obviously has been much different. This has been one of the busiest years I've ever seen for deployment. So we've been fortunate enough to be able to assist in not only Hurricane Laura in Beaumont. We sent 2 ambulances for a strike team and a few medical incident support teams.
We've had the opportunity right now to help out our fellow Texans, not just in our own community, but all over. Myself, along with other members of the EMS division leadership and several of our frontline paramedics this year have deployed all over the state for several different types of contingencies.
But we've sent ambulance strike teams to Laredo. We've sent medical incident support teams to El Paso, Del Rio, Eagle Pass, and we've also done some local support missions.
Not just the COVID-19 pandemic, where we helped out with critical care transports of sick patients in Laredo, Texas, and assisting staffing the mobile medical unit in El Paso, but also hurricane deployments. We had teams working here locally at the Freeman Coliseum to help shelter patients, people displaced by the Hurricane Laura, and then forward operations with some of our crews assisting in Beaumont and Port Arthur. So it's been a great opportunity for us to step up and help out our fellow Texans in need this year.
Right now, currently, we have a couple of the medical incident support teams working in a statewide coordination center to be able to aid Texas in moving their patients around to different hospitals and things like that. So I definitely think we've made an impact not only locally, but throughout the state through those kinds of opportunities, and being able to get our medics out there and be able to do those things throughout the state has been really awesome. And this has been a busy year for it.
Managing these multiple, deployments while also being able to maintain, the response without any ill effects, really shows the, the ability of not just our response, but our department, but also of our personnel and our leadership to ensure that happened.
I think the best way to describe Dr. Manifold, larger than life, a man with an even bigger heart. What he was to our department was everything in EMS to get us started.
Craig Manifold was a very influential physician in this community. We came to find out later in his career and when he passed that he was a very influential man nationally and internationally. For us here, he was our first medical director when we started EMS.
A medical director of mine for well over a decade, and he's been a mentor. He's been a challenging mentor to me. We always had our agreements and disagreements over pre-hospital medicine, but the one thing that we could definitely agree on was always the personnel as well as the delivery of the patient, the care to the patient.
He really had a lot of pride in the system. He had a lot of pride in our medics. He had a lot of pride in just the department, and him being a huge part of that. He helped guide us how to implement some things the best way, how he saw kind of his vision for the department and EMS, and how we can piece that together with our vision.
Ready! Ready! Fire! Ready! Ready! Fire! Ready! Ready! Fire! Bring that up!
I mean, I've known Dr. Manifold for several years, just like all of us. We've known Dr. Manifold for a long time, but the legacy that he leaves with our clinicians, it's never going to be forgotten. Every single person that's with a paramedic patch or an EMT patch on their shoulder right now that goes out on those trucks every single day can attribute their skills, competency, knowledge, experience, all to some legacy that, some part of his legacy that he left behind. He's been a big push to us. I can't even describe the hole that it left in our organization with his passing. But we'll just continue to honor that and drive forward and just strive for clinical excellence or patient care for all the patients that we're going to continue to treat and go forth.
The year 2020 tested our firefighters on a level we would have never thought of. Each and every member stepped up to the challenge, and we're right there for the community. Our department has grown tremendously with personnel and the addition of 2 more fire stations. We could not have done it without the support of the citizens of Bexar County. "2021 has shown that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and we will get through this together." Either way, no matter what happens, we will be ready.
The largest one was at a middle school site here in our community. Guess we'll wait till that goes. Damn you.
Everything you start thinking about, everything you learn, and everything we've gone over the academy so far.
Working. Participating. Working. Don't get my belly.
Please participate. There you go.
Hey, where do these go?
All right, guys, so you've seen what our truck looks like, and you've seen our gear. I messed up.
Thanks. Thanks, guys. That was good.
Position was just maintaining the day-to-day operations and the overall health and well-being of the department, of course. You know, it was coming. It was like, I didn't even think about it when it did its thing.
Oh, I know we're walking forward.
Yeah, we're walking forward.
Okay. I thought she was gonna do it left side. Okay.
So y'all gonna come together.
Okay.
Let's go, Bob. Hurry up. Hurry up.
Michelle. I said, well, we ain't gotta go to HEB. We got.
Oh yeah, I got some
meat for the nachos.
Why you keep on taping me, dog? I'm more of a backgrounds guy.
So I was I can't feel my fingers. I got. Did you get that? Whoops.
Really just gave us a whole new set of clinical challenges to meet. I have to reshoot that again, huh? No, that's fine. Bang!